recording? Let's give it a second. It's loading. There we go. Perfect. We're recording. All right. Hi, everyone. Happy Wednesday. So we have a live event today. We have Amanda Newhouse here and John Hatfield. We're going to talk about the process of opening up a dental assisting academy. So let's get started with John. John, if you can just share a little bit about yourself with our users, and we'll go from there, okay?
Okay, great. Well, Irina, thanks so much again for having us on. I've been an assistant now for over 25 years, trained right out of high school through the Air Force, and still love it. You know, I currently work at the VA hospital, and Amanda here, we met, a few years back working for a corporation. We kept in touch. So, that's pretty much, and also, I do manage the Dental Assistant Worldwide Facebook group, so that helps us connect with dental assistants all over the world and locally. And of course, Amanda and I keep in touch pretty much daily. So I'll let Amanda tell you a little bit about herself.
Thank you.
Hi again. Thank you for having us. Again, my name is Amanda. I've been an assistant for 18 years. I went to Westmoreland County Community College and did a short assisting program here in Pennsylvania. I'm now an EFTA, an expanded function assistant, for about the past 7 years.
Oh, cool.
I've had some different experience with working in, I met John at corporate dentistry. Currently, for about the past 7 years, I've been at a small private practice with one doctor and have been working there using my EFTA duties. And now we're on to the next venture of putting together and opening up a dental assistant school. So that's where we are.
Wow, that's so awesome. And both of you have all these years of experience as dental assistants. So be ready for all of my questions. I think most of our, Zen offices have just been wondering, what's the process about? How do you get started? Especially for the assistants that have been, within a dental office for all these years, they'll have lots of questions for you. So let's get started and just, I'll ask my first question. So what made you want to start a dental assisting academy?
Well, how this all got started is basically my office has been looking for a dental assistant to hire, as we all have been in that situation of being shorthanded and really been out there having ads out there, of course, on social media, on Indeed, on dental assistant pages, on our Facebook groups. So I had been posting and was contacted by actually 2 other girls in another state that had a dental assistant program, which was hosted in their office. So that's kind of how this conversation got started. They said, have you ever thought of just hosting a program in your dental office, and then maybe you could hire one of those students? And don't really know, how this process would go. Can you give me more information? So we were then introduced to a short program that is held in an office, maybe on a day that office is closed. And then that's how we got started.
That's so interesting. Amanda, thank you for sharing that. Then John, and so you guys met, a couple years back, and can you share your side of the story as well?
Well, so my side of the story is basically Amanda starts telling me about this idea, that she's short-handed and that she doesn't know what to do. She doesn't know the first thing of what to do. What do I think? So I started talking to some people that I know that have actually gone down this road of opening schools. And once I talk to them, I'm pretty much relaying this information back to Amanda. So one day, Amanda finally says, would you be interested in, going along with me on this? And maybe 15 minutes, I thought about it and I said, absolutely. So, so from there, this was probably fall of last year, we started even talking about this. Mm-hmm. And the information Amanda started putting together, and then the information I started putting together with our contacts, we were able to start actually putting something together. And is from a dental standpoint, but we still didn't know all the answers. Can a dental assistant actually own a dental assistant school? Well, in the state of Pennsylvania, you can. Some of the assistants I talked to, they did have to partner up with a dentist to actually open a school. In the state of New York, that is the case, but Pennsylvania, it's not the case. In the state of Pennsylvania, an assistant can actually open a practice and run and operate a dental practice. So from once we actually had that, we didn't even have that information solid yet. We kept digging and digging, and then Amanda came across, we have to basically attend a seminar through the Department of Education before we can even submit an application. So we had to go for a 1-day seminar, and then from there, we were able to get our answers finally, from the Department of Education that, we don't see any problems with this. In fact, for whatever reason in our area, nothing like this is being done. So, from there, we got the green light to at least start putting together the application.
So, John, all of this happened last year, right? So before COVID hit, you went and got the application filled out. Everything was approved.
Well, no, actually, we started in the fall.
Okay.
We went to the application seminar. We went literally 1 week before COVID hit. Like, we were debating on going March or April. Amanda said, let's just go in March, because once you go to the seminar, you have 1 year to submit your application. So my thought process was, why don't we go in April, and then we'll have an extra month? But Amanda was pushing for March, and I'm glad she did, because now we've had all this time to work on our application, obviously with some downtime in dentistry.
Got it. So yeah, Amanda, good job on that. It's like you felt it, you got to go in March.
Yeah, I think our meeting was March 4th, and, our local schools here in Pennsylvania went basically on a shutdown on March 13th. So that seminar hit right at the right time. We made the trip out to Harrisburg, and basically that is a seminar that they go over the application process with us, what's all going to be required through the Department of Education. And as we learned, like John said, that we've reached out to other people, we're in the state of Pennsylvania, and not every state requires you to go through the same steps. So we're learning that the things that we've had to come across and kind of tackle in PA, that maybe someone might not go through those same steps in another state. So we're in the process of filling all those check marks in that we need to fulfill that application in order to then submit it to the Department of Education, which of course they have a deadline, which they'll review it and give us our final approval to be able to get this officially up and running as our goal, early spring of 2021.
2021. Okay, got it. And then, so basically, if I'm in Illinois, if I wanted to start a dental assisting school here in the Chicago area, it would be a whole different process, right? So I may not even be able to as a dental assistant, right? I would need a doctor to do it with me.
Possibly.
Correct. Yeah, that's possible. You basically just have to get online and start doing your research to see if your state, like John said, if an assistant is allowed or not, and then you would partner up with a doctor, because we have been in contact with other people that have done this, that the doctor is basically the sole ownership, and then as an assistant, whether it's a partnership or you're just working for that doctor. So not every state requires the application. Every state, it seems to be a different fee of what that application is going to cost to get it up and running with the approval process.
Gotcha. Okay. And so basically, before you got the idea with starting the Dental Assisting Academy, were there any other schools that you had reached out to for any advice or just how to get started overall within the state?
Within our state of Pennsylvania, no, actually. We had just done some research before we started this process to see if there were any other options of dental assistants going to school during this type of program. Of course, this is a short accelerated 13-week program that we're putting together. Where we live in the state of Pennsylvania, there's a few high school vocational schools. There is some programs that are about a year in length, which obviously are then much more in cost. Right. So our area, we're near Pittsburgh. So the next closest area was towards the middle of the state and the Philadelphia area. So we hadn't reached out to them, of course, necessarily on asking for advice. we just did the research to see if there was any other options or any other offices in our area that did this type of program.
Okay, that makes sense for sure. And then in terms of just being an assistant in Pennsylvania, are you required to go to a dental assistant academy before you can start working in an office?
So you're not required to be licensed or certified in the state of Pennsylvania, although they do require that you have your radiology certificate if you're going to be taking x-rays. So,
I see.
But a lot of dentists, they just don't have time to train somebody on the job. So we do see occasional, hey, I'm willing to train, and they'll pay someone minimum wage with no experience. But for the most part, assistants in this state, they have gone to some type of school or received some type of training.
Got it. So it's very rare that they just, come out of college and they go to a dental office and they just get a job and get trained at the job, right? So they do have some sort of a background education before they get started.
Well, as far as the state of Pennsylvania, they're required to at least have a high school diploma or a GED to attend this school.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense for sure. So then that leads to my next question. What kind of aspects of the Cornerstone Dental Assisting Academy will be different as compared to other assisting schools within your state?
Well, I think I'll let Amanda
go ahead,
start.
John.
Okay.
Obviously, our biggest thing that we want to tackle is creating and teaching great individuals to become great dental assistants. We want them to obviously be not very knowledgeable in the basics of dentistry in order to be able to step into the dental field and apply for these jobs. There are a ton of jobs in our area, and for these busy offices, it is hard to then train them on the job. So giving them the basics of dentistry for this program is important for them to step into the field. We also want to teach them, like John and I talk about all the time, real life scenarios. As we know, when you go to college, there's the book way and naturally being able to, the knowledge that you need in order to pass your state boards or your state exam for your radiology here in Pennsylvania. But we also want to create and mold dental assistants of the scenarios that they'll be exposed to, whether we talk about dentistry. Dental assisting is really a stepping stone into, you can go into hygiene. You become an expanded function dental assistant in Pennsylvania. You can go in to be a lab tech. Obviously the different avenues of ortho, endo, peds. We want dental assistants to have the basic knowledge and then also let them know that this isn't necessarily their only avenue that they can take into their career, that as long as you're willing to educate yourself along the way and be a continuous learner, once you reach and step into that office, that there's so many different avenues that you can take. Of course, maybe John wants to, there's so much on the business end that a dental assistant not only can help the back office in the sense of being an assistant helping that doctor, but there's also a business part that, of course, someone who owns a business as being a dentist or, us owning a dental assistant school, there's the business factor of it too. And we want to honestly teach the dental assistants about that avenue of the job also.
That's so important. And I feel like, coming from a dental background myself, when you start out in a dental office, you don't know, like all the insurance questions, the front desk management and how all of that works. So I think if there were some sort of courses within an assisting school on how to, work or be that expanded function dental assistant. So not just from the clinical aspect, but then also from the management standpoint, I think that would help, especially during a time like right now, since the job is so in demand. I'm pretty sure it's not just in your area, but in other big cities as well. So I think that'd be really cool if you guys had like some sort of a management course as a part of the assisting program. It's really cool. What are the challenges that you foresee, with starting the academy? I think it's a hard one though to answer right away.
just daily challenges. Is that what
Yeah, daily challenges and just challenges overall, especially right now during COVID. I think everyone is just going through this time of uncertainty, and just trying to figure out like how do we stay afloat? We go to a remote program. Do we still do like in-person classes? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think first of all, Amanda and I talk about it. It was nice from a standpoint of, okay, everything slowed down. It was perfect timing because we were obviously able to get some things in place with the application, but we weren't able to go into those offices, knock on doors, introduce ourselves. So that obviously, that's a huge challenge because we're basically cold calling and sending Facebook messages and let's face it, the complete package here is our great personalities, right? So we're not really able to sell that to dentists, and they're just getting these messages, and they're probably just thinking, who are these two jokers? So we have gotten a good response as far as what we're trying to do and helping with some of our requirements. But I also feel that that's a huge holdback for us because Amanda and I love to talk, and you're basically putting a muzzle on us during this time. So.
That's rough.
Trying to call and get doctors even on the phone during this time has been a challenge. So, as far as we don't know what the future is going to hold once this application process, they actually come and do a site visit. So, we're kind of curious. Okay, are they going to come in and say, "Hey, we gotta stick to this 6 feet rule," whereas this was not a thing 6 months ago. So. There's a lot of challenges we talk about daily, but we might just be purely speculating on what could happen. So we're just taking it day by day, on a lot of these situations.
Yeah, we don't know what the huge future holds, and that's a great point because right now it's like people thought that COVID hit, maybe a couple of weeks, we'll be back in the office in April, and here we were, at home till June. And then when everyone talks about the second wave, I wonder how that will impact, the startup dental practices, then the assistant academy that you're starting. So there could be a lot of factors, that we may not account for, and we just have to go with the flow, but then at the same time be proactive about planning the future. So So we probably answered this question partially, but it was a question that came in from a couple assistants, and they were asking, why is a dental assisting academy needed? Because, here we, in Chicago, at least, a lot of the assistants that I know myself, they graduated from college and then they decided maybe, before I start hygiene school or dental school, let me go in and start assisting. So what are the benefits of going to a dental assisting academy rather than just going into an office and starting right away? So what is your take on this overall?
My thought process is, whenever we look at these schools, they range anywhere from 10 weeks to 15 weeks. So when Amanda and I sat down and nailed down the curriculum and what we wanted to go over, that's actually how we landed on 13 weeks. We thought, okay, what's the best way for someone to get their money's worth? Okay. And, we pulled a lot of assistants in our groups and just asked them, what did you feel like you got your money's worth? Where did you feel like you were shortchanged? So that's how we even came up with 13 weeks total. So based on what someone's going to pay for 13 weeks, they are absolutely going to get their money's worth when they graduate versus going to a 1-year dental assistant school that is 30,000 plus, So they're going to walk into an office. I'm sure they're going to be a little bit jittery, but they're also going to have that knowledge and that capability to jump right in versus someone coming off the street. And basically every day second guessing, trying to figure out, hey, tooth numbers, what are we talking about?
Hard one. Gotta go to school for that.
Absolutely. I mean, it does blow my mind that people still train dental assistants as an OJT because certainly whenever we do group polls and we ask questions as far as, hey, who was trained in an office, who was trained in a school, the education just isn't there. There's no way that a dentist is going through everything with an assistant. They might know the basics. They might be able to run around that office, but then certainly once you pull them out of that office and get them into other settings, that's when the exposure starts to happen that, they're not on the same playing level.
Right. And as we know, when you're trained on the job, like John just said, it's just, you're so minimized by that one doctor. You're not getting a broad spectrum of your education. And we hear a lot of, these dental assistants that are graduating these longer programs with more debt. And as we know, the dental assistant wage is not comparable to now what they owe for their education. So as we know, dental assistants are looking for maybe second jobs, or they completely leave the field, which is why we're in such a high demand of these jobs openings that need to be, because, people are leaving the field. And obviously, even due to the COVID and the fear that we are all experiencing now, we know so many offices that maybe they didn't even open up, or when they did, that they had just a significant amount of staff that didn't return. So, we want to give these students a great education at an affordable cost for our area. So then when they do get out, that there's, that hopefully that they're offered a job, and that they are also able to, pay for their education in a more sustainable environment.
Those are excellent points. Yes. I think, a lot of assistants just coming out of even high school, they're thinking, well, why am I going to spend that, $30,000 in the assisting school when I can jump into, even if it's a minimal wage job, they're thinking, well, I can work my way up. Maybe I start as an assistant and eventually just moving into an office manager or going to school for hygiene. So those are great points that, I personally myself haven't thought about. And the 13-week idea, I really like that, rather than it being, a $30,000, tuition. You're narrowing it down to the 13 weeks within those 10 and the 15. So that's a great point. I had a question actually when you were talking about the 13-week tuition. Will there be any sort of a different rate if the school has to be completely remote, or will the tuition stay the same, whether it was in-person learning or remote learning?
Well,
so when we attended the seminar, back in March,
okay,
one of the first questions we asked was, what are we allowed to do as far as, because here in Pennsylvania, and I'm sure Chicago's the same way, the weather in the wintertime is horrible. So we were thinking ahead, and we asked, hey, are we allowed to do Zoom calls, for half a day? And at that time, they said, absolutely not. Not in the state of Pennsylvania are you allowed to do remote training this way. So, but of course, as we've seen, we feel that there's a major change, right?
Yeah.
So obviously, when we go back for our application process and our hearing, that's going to have to be one of our first questions is, because even the application seminar that's coming up is via Zoom. So we were originally planning on driving to Harrisburg for the hearing, but they're actually having it via Zoom. So, I feel like the world is changing in that sense. Now, as far as our plans go, certainly if something like this happened again, then we would certainly want to adjust it. I mean, we hear these stories about these kids trying to sue colleges because they're not getting, they're getting charged the same rate. And, a lot of our plan for our courses are, 4 hours lecture, 4 hours hands-on. So, you just can't possibly, and I've seen some of the dental assistant schools. I watched some of the stuff on Instagram and Facebook where they're basically just holding up a mixing bowl and they're telling the students on Zoom, hey, this is what you do.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're trying to adjust on the fly, but that's something that we'll certainly have to weigh into the future as far as what we would even do if it was to become remote training. But I don't know, as far as the state of Pennsylvania, I don't know how much they would like that if you were just doing online courses.
Sure. Right. And there are really aspects of dental assisting that as much as you want to, teach it remotely, it's really hard. So when you talk about, mixing and the spatula and the bowl and, it crosses my mind and I'm like, how do you teach that through Zoom? You just have to show that, trimming models, just endo, you have to show that. It has to be in person. And then I thought, well, are you planning to invite any doctors as speakers to the school?
Well, I've actually, some of the dentists, it's funny, they all want to chime in and give you advice.
Yeah.
So
right.
I have actually talked to a few of them about, hey, would you be interested in maybe putting together a couple-minute video that we could actually show during the class? Because to get a dentist to actually take time out of their day and come to the course, it'd probably be next to impossible. But if I could actually get the dentist to put their thoughts and feelings down on tape, and I could show it as part of the course, absolutely, that's something that I have discussed with some dentists that repeatedly want to offer some free advice.
Oh, of course.
That's so cool. Yeah, for sure. And, as much as I think assistants like to collaborate with other assistants within the field, just having that perspective from the doctors and the hygienists and office managers, just having the whole team, come in and share their experience, maybe how they get started within the dental office. I think it's very inspirational, to the assistants that are just starting out, especially during a time like right now. So, and then I was wondering, as far as the classrooms, how many students will be within one class? Is there a limit or no limit?
Amanda,
Well,
you want to handle that?
Sure. Of course, our goal is a bigger class. Naturally, we would just want to be able to give them the best education. So currently, it's just John and I who will be instructing. So the Department of Education in Pennsylvania does a site visit with our school. Naturally, they want to make sure that we're having it in a location that's safe, a safe environment for the student. And they want to see the square footage of the office. So currently we're told that there's not necessarily a cap of students of how many we're allowed to have. But yet again, that's been something in other states that they've told other people who went through their application that it was based on square footage. John and I are looking, we would love to have, 10 to 20 students, probably no more than 10. So then we can focus on, if we're doing lecture, then maybe I would be doing the 4-hour lecture. John would be doing like the 4 hours of lab hands-on training time. And then we could switch those students. But we want to just make sure that we have enough time of ourselves in order to be able to give and educate those students. So when they have questions, and they're able to get the full experience and education during their 13 weeks. So as long as the space permits of where our office, of the dental office that we're using to have the school, we will take on as many students that we think that we can teach, whether it's in the lecture or, of course, enough operatories. Naturally, if your office that you're using only has 2 operatories of teaching hand, and you might be more limited, or just, or if you're having your classroom maybe just in a large waiting room, and naturally if there's only, a half a dozen of waiting room chairs, then that is going to probably restrict you on how many students you're going to have. So we're currently talking to doctors and looking at their office with a visit to see how their office is set up in order to determine how many students we're going to have. Naturally, the more the merrier, in the sense. We would love to just as many students that we can to get them out in the field. But at this point, it is as far as our knowledge knows, that according to the state, that we're not necessarily limited.
Gotcha. It makes me think back to the college days when we had lectures, with 50 plus people in this huge hall, and you have one professor. And so then I'm thinking, now COVID hit, how are they going to do that? How does that happen? Just like a basic Bio 101 course. And I'm sure you'll have something like, starting out like DA 101 or something. How do you get 50 people on a Zoom call? So I like the idea of having 10 to 20 students. I think it's going to be very, like a teacher-student kind of relationship. So it's, easier to communicate and ask questions. And I think overall the students feel more comfortable when the classes are not 50 plus people, within a lecture hall.
Yeah, now, Irina, in some of those states, we found out that as far as their application process, the number of students is also determined by how many instructors, kind of like a daycare, So that number varies too. When I talked to some people, they said, well, we were allowed 8 to 10 students per instructor. So, unfortunately, the state of Pennsylvania, there's no cap as far as instructors, but they can't give you a definitive number as far as square footage. They're just kind of like, you tell us what you think it's appropriate, and we'll come and look, and we'll tell you yes or no.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, we'll have one of these calls in a couple months, or, once you guys get rolling and you get, your classrooms put together, and I'll ask, I'll reflect back on today's webinar, and we'll see, how many students will be in the class. So I think that's super interesting. So can one of you or both of you just jump in and go through, what does a typical day look like? So I come in the morning, right? So if I start tomorrow, what will my day look like in the dental assisting school?
Well, we're focused on, of course, around the first 4 hours of because it's once a week is one meeting, and we're gonna have it as an all day. So we would go through whatever our lecture is, of course, according to our syllabus that you would receive. So we would be discussing, obviously, general dentistry, maybe a portion of radiology, since we definitely want to make sure that radiology is thoroughly taught, because you have to have that in order to take that test, in order to then be able to walk into a dental assistant job. We would then take a break for our lunch, and then we would come back and regroup. And then as students, then we would do the lab portion or hands-on portion. So we would take students into the operatories, be hands-on with being able to see the instrument, like we talked about, the mixing of the alginate, how to pour models, how to set up for restorative, whether that be composite, amalgam, endo, extractions, things like that. So we would naturally focus back on the 4 hours of book education, and then relate to whatever we spoke about or lectured about that morning into then the 4 hours of time that we would spend hands-on for. Yes.
Gotcha. So basically, as a recap for our dental assistants on Zen, I can tell them we do 4 hours lecture, break, and then lab to reflect back on what we talked about in the morning with the lecture. That's really cool. Will the remote portion of the Assisting Academy be recorded so that the assistants can look back at it? If it's once a week, at least I'm speaking for myself. Like sometimes I may forget, what we talked about in the first hour. So I might want to look back. So will you be recording the classes?
Absolutely. If the state tells us, hey, we're allowed to do remote, absolutely, we'll set up some kind of recording process, because the state is very strict as far as, hey, if a student misses their class, what do you have in place for them to make it up? So, absolutely, we have to have all those answers for them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Gotcha. That's very cool. As far as, hygiene schools here, with the community colleges in Chicago, a couple of my friends that have graduated, they've asked me, like, do you want to come in as a volunteer patient so I can do my cleaning on you? Is that something that the dental assistants will have an opportunity to work on as well, the volunteer patients?
Not from this standpoint. As far as having patients come into the office, no, but we are implementing an externship. So the state of Pennsylvania requires us to set up offices prior to. And this is something we found out from other states, because other states, the student is responsible for finding where to do externships. But Amanda and I have to procure those agreements ahead of time to submit with our application. So once we get them to 6 weeks of training, at that point we'll start giving them externship assignments, and for those that last half of school, they'll actually be going and working on live patients in a dental office setting.
Okay, gotcha. And then as far as picking the practices that accept the students from the Cornerstone Dental Assistant Academy, do you have a list you're going to be going off of? What's the process of picking those practices?
Well, a lot of those practices we've basically made posts in local groups and advertisements, and those practices have contacted us, expressed an interest. Then from there, we talk to them, explain what's going to be happening at the school and what's expected of the student. Then we send them the agreement for them to review, and if they like the way everything sounds, they send us the agreement back signed. And then that tells us that they're an office that is willing to accept, that they're going to accept an extern in the future.
Okay, got it. And then also, I had a thought, probably, with the assistants coming into these clinics to kind of get the hands-on experience, it allows them to look at that, perfect office, whether it be pedo, general, endo. They're just getting that hands-on experience and potentially finding their future office. If that office is hiring, maybe this is where they belong. So I think that experience is extremely valuable for the students.
Absolutely. And that's how, that's what the state, or that's what John and I have talked about too, that, this externship, go into it with an open mind and, ask lots of questions. And then we like that then the students can come back to class the following week and they all should have done, a certain number of hours with their externship, and we can discuss, or if they were, why did the doctor do this, or why did, he have me, do this with the patient or that, or just questions in general that naturally, like John said earlier, that you're a little standoffish going into an office of when to ask the question, or just even just working physically in a patient's mouth. It just takes some time and comfort level. So we feel that externship naturally will give the student just a good experience while they're going to school. So then we can help them along with the questions that they have towards the end, through the end of the program.
Sure. I love that idea. Then what about the curriculum overall? Will that in any way be impacted by COVID or not at all? Will the plan still stay the same in terms of what classes the students are going to be taking, or will COVID impact sedation, implants, sleep apnea procedures? So that's just something I was wondering myself.
I think infection control wise is really the only change that we see whenever we discussed it. Just obviously the emphasis on, and that's changing all the time too. We're reading the CDC guidelines, the state guidelines. So, we're fluent as far as that goes because we're getting new notifications every day on what to do. Is it 15 minutes set time this day, aerosols this day? So that's definitely, we're just taking it day by day on that as well, because, certainly what we're talking about, today might be completely different in the springtime. So
absolutely,
we, of course, we're looking into OSAP for guidance on infection control as well as the CDC.
Okay. OSAP. Yep. That's a good point. And then if there was any advice that you had for a dental assistant looking to start out within the dental assisting school at this time, what would you tell them?
Was starting their own dental assistant school?
I know, just looking for the right dental assisting school, what's the best fit, especially if you Google dental assisting schools in the area, there's a bunch that come up, right? So what is that criteria that they should look at before they pick Cornerstone?
Oh, okay. That's a great question. Well, I think, one thing Amanda and I talk about that we're baffled by is when people go to these year-long schools, they have a hygienist teaching them. And we can't figure out why a hygienist is teaching dental assistants, because we're on the same team, but it's not the same job. So, for me, if I'm spending my money, I want it to be someone who does the job every day, who has plenty of experience, and not just experience in one aspect. When Amanda and I talk about our experience, we have experience military, private practice, corporations, federal employment through the VA, and prisons. So, we feel that our experience, we can give a lot to a student to advise them, hey, like Amanda said earlier about, you might want to go into endo, you might want to go here, but also we can talk to them about what to expect when you go into these different avenues of dentistry, as far as federal and military and civilian corporations as well. So I feel the overall experience is what's important. If I was going to a hygiene school, absolutely, I would want a hygienist teaching me. But I want someone who's actually going to take full mouth series showing me x-rays.
Yes, yes.
You know,
That's an excellent point.
I
Yeah,
think of how many hygienists are taking full mouth series versus an assistant, you know?
Right.
great point. Yeah, excellent. John, I didn't think about that. You go to an assisting school, and I thought maybe these are just dentists, teaching the classes. I've never thought that. I would prefer that an assistant gives me their background knowledge. They give me their, view on the real life situations within the dental practice. So that's awesome. And then, Amanda, do you have anything to add? Why would an assistant pick Cornerstone Dental Academy and not like, I don't know, like Dental Assistant Academy of Pennsylvania or something like that? Yeah.
Well, I think in general, obviously, is picking a job or picking a school, you really have to do your research of what fits for you personally. Obviously, this is a quicker accelerated program in 13 weeks. If you know that it might take you a little bit longer to maybe learn something or be more comfortable, or maybe you're more of a book learner versus a hands-on learner, then of course, absolutely, maybe a longer program would work for you. Or maybe if you're looking at the financial aspect of things, of what the cost is, or financial aid and things in that term, is picking what's right for you. But I 100% agree with John. We want to give someone a well-rounded education. We want to focus on what the DAMB requirements are for a dental assistant in the state of Pennsylvania. Of course, you can go state to state, and what I can do as a dental assistant in Pennsylvania is different, of course, what you can probably do in Chicago.
Of course.
So we really want to educate our students on what legally they're allowed to do in the state of Pennsylvania. We want to give them, like we said, the real life scenarios of what they can expect. Like John said, he works currently in the VA. I worked at state penitentiary. We've worked in corporate. And as we talked about the business end, all of those different types of experiences that John and I have had over our years can really give someone the insight of maybe where they want to go. So I think that's a question that you would want to ask when you're looking for a dental assistant program. Who's, like John said, who's teaching me, what are the courses I'm going to be getting, and maybe do your own research on seeing what your state requires, and making sure obviously that's that program or that school education is going to focus on what those requirements and those things that you're allowed to do in that state are going to be covered in your program. You don't want to graduate from something as this type of program and be educated on something that you're not allowed to do. You spoke on sedation and implants and sleep apnea. Naturally, we're going to touch base on all those things, just like sealants and how set up for a composite resin. Naturally, we're not going to teach a dental assistant in the state of Pennsylvania how to place a sealant, because legally they're not allowed. So we just want them to be a very well-rounded student and be able to educate them so they are ready to jump into a job. John, the goal to have them be placed then in a position when they're done with the program, of course.
Got it. Oh, that's an excellent answer. I'm so glad, we elaborated on that. So I think, for any future offices, Zen offices that we have in Pennsylvania, if they're looking to hire assistants, I definitely refer them to Cornerstone, since, we have our background knowledge after speaking with you guys. So that's really cool. Then I had a question. You spoke about exams. Can you talk more on that? So what will the examination process look like at Cornerstone? What can the assistants expect?
Well, the assistants are going to have a weekly exam, what our lecturer covered the previous class. And of course, like John and I have talked, that being that this is an accelerated program, there's also going to be a decent amount of homework or just time that you have to spend, reading and educating yourself on when you go home for the week. We're only meeting once a week. So, the next week we're moving on. So we want to be able to educate the student and make sure that they are well aware and understand what we did teach. So, a quiz or a test every week is more than likely going to be given with your typical midterm and final exam. And that comes with a written exam and also practical hands-on exams. to where they will be demonstrating to us how to, go through the infection control process, right? Wiping down a room, setting up, your barriers on what needs barrier for infection, cross-contamination, how to set up a composite resin, your extraction procedures. So those, that's our plan, is the hands-on and the practical exams through the weeks of the 13-week process.
Okay, got it. That definitely answers my question really well. John, is there anything else you'd like to add to the examination process for the assistants?
Well, we actually are looking at, a few companies that we're able to purchase books from for dental assistants. And they actually have their own website you can utilize as far as a Blackboard or Canvas type setting, but you can do everything on there. So when you purchase their material, they actually give you the access to the website. So we can actually build quizzes and tests and information on their website. So then whenever the students purchase the books, and this is something great that months ago we didn't know, but of course we were able to find this out because we were saying, where are we going to purchase these books from? A lot of people, they go to Amazon, right?
Sure.
Well, after talking to some of these companies, these books that you buy in Facebook pages and Amazon, a lot of them are counterfeit or they're used. They actually come with a one-time code. So these codes actually give you access to the website. So our students will be purchasing these books new, and then they'll have access to the website. So they'll be able to create their own account. So now we won't have to worry about sending them to Blackboard or Canvas and here and there. We're able to put everything right onto these websites that we're getting the books from.
Wow, that's I didn't think about that. I should have asked you. So what is the textbook aspect of the school? Is it going to be like PDFs? But you answered that. Awesome. That's awesome.
It's a telephone book. It's great.
So cool. Yeah, I remember like back in college, you'd have to buy that, calculus book. It comes with a code, so you can't get it used, or you got to pay for the code separately, and it's extremely expensive. So that's a great point. And then in terms of tuition, since we're on that money topic, in terms of tuition, will the assistants have some sort of a financing option or any loans they can take out? I know the times are rough right now with, the incomes and all. So how will that work? How will they work with the tuition?
Well, right now, just getting set up with, the state of Pennsylvania, it's very basic what we're allowed to do. So it's basically, we have a fee, and from there, we've set up a business account with a bank, and they're going to set us up as far as that we will be able to accept credit cards as payment to start. And, certainly we are talking about other options, but it's kind of like you can't just immediately sign up for everything. You can't sign up to take the GI Bill. You can't sign up to take grants and loans. And, so that is a process. It kind of, Amanda and I like to, definitely run before we walk. And the Department of Education definitely slows you down, and they say, hey, wait a minute, this is what you have to do first. So as far as us just getting started, it basically will be, that those types of payments to begin with, but we will certainly look at other options because we know that, sometimes that might be, even though it's a fraction of what these schools cost, it's still a lump sum that someone might not have right away. So, we're certainly always looking for other types of payment plans.
Got it. To help them out. Yeah, that's excellent. So if, after the call, usually I take notes during the webinars, and then later on I link them up for our users so they can, look back at what we talked about. Do you have a website that I can share with them with the information that we've covered, or is it still in progress?
So we are not allowed to officially advertise anything about the school, as far as, dates or payments or anything like that. But we do have an email address. Amanda can give it to you. And people can certainly feel free to email us with any questions that way, contact us. And both of us have access to that email, so we can certainly filter that and get back to anyone who might have a question.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. Yeah. I'm going to ask you to share that with me, and then that'd be, a great resource for the Zen offices if they had any questions aside from what we've covered so far. Let me take a look here at my other questions. So, how will Cornerstone Academy prepare for the new trends in dentistry? Especially right now, COVID, we're seeing all these PPEs, and I hear it more and more often from the assistants saying, it's harder to breathe, I'm getting headaches, how do I make it through that 8-10 hour workday, and how do I prepare myself? So what have you thought about that within the school? Like, how are you going to prepare the assistants for this new time in dentistry?
Yeah, John and I have touched base on this some. It's something that is, like we said, is required, and to a certain extent with the PPE, it's almost to a certain extent we just have to suffer through it. The shield is to be required. The mask is obviously required. Long sleeves are obviously required. So yeah, it's something, even at the beginning of going back to work myself, I just remember being extremely, extremely hot. Like, where's the built-in fan that I can wear around my neck because we're all suffocating? But, actually, I don't know what week I'm now in after post-COVID. Now I'm like, this is just part of the day. But, it's something as basic as reminding students that, your hands are physically going to be in someone's mouth. If you don't think that that's something you're going to be able to handle and work with, being, not everybody's smile is healthy and pretty. Let's be honest, that's not all we see in dentistry. That if you don't, education-wise, if you don't think physically you're going to be able to comfortably breathe in that shield or in that N95 mask, or then, this might not be the profession for you. But we want them to know that naturally your protection of your health is also very important. So if this is required to keep you safe from not only the COVID, but as we know, we treat every patient like they have something and always have, that these are just the precautions that are required that you have to take. That also, who knows, like John said earlier, what will be in a year from now, what we'll learn from not only COVID, but as we know in our future, more than likely, there's going to be something else that possibly will arise when it comes to a virus that we'll have to, you have to adapt and you have to go through. So naturally teaching students the importance of the not wearing the level 1 mask and obviously wearing the N95 and the filtrations and things like that. I think if you're more aware and you're educated of why you're wearing it, then you're going to adapt to why you're wearing that. You're kind of uncomfortable throughout the day of wearing that. We want students to also know that that your education to yourself is, after this type of program, is important. Continuing even in if you don't have your CDA and PA, as a dental assistant or anybody who's working in the dental field, it's constantly changing. Step out of your comfort and do those CE classes, not just obviously online, which most of them are right now, but go to those classes and educate yourself on the changes in dentistry, like we had touched base before with the sedation. And, the way implants are placed now are clearly not how they were placed 18, 15 years ago. So it's important to constantly keep that open mind that no matter what we teach you during this 13-week program, that how your education or how your horizons can be in 5 years from now is going to be basically how you continue your education and your knowledge in the dental field, as we know, is constantly changing.
Absolutely. And from what you've covered so far, I think, the Academy will do an excellent job keeping the assistants on top of all the news, with what's going on in dentistry and with this historic moment of COVID that, we have to bundle up like that and just change the way we do a lot of procedures. Will definitely have a long-term, impact on the dental practices. So, and then I had a thought, what about, so the school will be once a week, right? So both of you are working full-time jobs, right? 9 to 5, 5 days a week. So what will the process be of, taking the day off? Are you going part-time? How will that impact your lives?
Yeah, this is a regular conversation between John and I. I'm 18 years with being a dental assistant. John's 25. Let's be honest, we all get to a point, I think, in our career, no matter what you do, that it's just time for a change. And John and I kind of hit that road where I love dentistry, but maybe there's something else I can do with all this background and knowledge that I have. So I currently work about 30 hours a week. I'm off on Mondays. So once we're up and running, my plan, and even now, my more focus is obviously the school, the success of the school, me focusing on, getting to that classroom and giving those students the best education that they're there for. So my plan is to probably keep my foot in the door, whether it's my current office or another office, to keep up with my skills. I think as soon as you step out of that dental office, that, you lose some of that. So I more than likely, maybe in a year when you talk to me, my answer might be a little bit different. But my plan is whatever day that an office hosts the program and we have the classroom, that naturally that's where I'll be. And, a day or 2 or 3. I have young children, so obviously my time at home is the most valuable and the most important to see and be with them. But definitely the school, and then more than likely even less, obviously much less hours in the dental setting somewhere, whether my current or somewhere else, of course.
Yeah, definitely. And with both of you, John having the 25 years of assisting and Amanda the 18 years, you have all this knowledge to share with everyone. So I think it's an excellent time to, step out of your comfort zone and say, hey, this is the time when I'm ready to share my knowledge. I'm ready to step out and, move on. But what a great point with, once you leave the dental office, you just lose that hands-on experience. You're doing something else, and then there are things you forget. So, it's inevitable. So it will happen. And John, how about for you? How will your life change?
Well, for me, I'll definitely be looking at, unfortunately, whenever you have federal employment, there is no part-time option. So for me, once we get the school up and running, I'll probably have to leave. And then from there, probably pick up a part-time job or temp, at least until we get going. But one great thing about Pennsylvania's Department of Education is we're allowed to open branch campuses. So these offices we've been talking to, maybe they weren't our ideal number one, but we've said to them, of course, in a nice way, hey, we'd be interested in maybe a second or third location. So if we are basically hosting schools in different locations 2 or 3 days a week, and then we're able to, work as a temp or part-time somewhere else 1 day a week, that's perfect for us as far as keeping our skills up and, of course, funneling assistance back into the community.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a great plan. I'm so excited to speak with you in a year or even in 6 months. Lots will change. And I am sure the Zen offices can't wait to find out more. So we'll link up your email. I'll link up all the notes that, I took during the call today. And then do you have anything to share with the users, before we wrap it up for today? Like any advice, anything that you have for our assistants?
I think, Oh, go ahead, Amanda.
I say personally, like I just said about, kind of needing to make a change, that we all get to a point of going through our 9 to 5, like you said, or our 8 to whatever your hours are, and get into this daily monotony of whether it's dental assisting or hygiene or being a doctor, that just step out of your comfort zone, whether it's taking on something else at your office to change maybe what you do or learn something new in order to bring something new to your office. And John and I always talk about that if another person or group of, individuals like John and I come to us and say, hey, this is maybe something that we want to do, we are all for 100% helping out and guiding maybe somebody else. So, start to do your research if you think this is something that maybe you want to take on in your state, or, there's so many great portions and parts of dentistry that I think right now in the COVID and this fear that we're living in and what our world is telling us, that we can all make it and just make the changes that we need to do in dentistry and work together as a team. It all comes down to a team effort from our front desk, our doctors, our office managers, assistants, hygienists, and just, if something needs changed in your office or if you need to make a change for your career, then just do it. You have to look out for what's best for you and your growth. I always think it's important to be able to grow as an employee and as a person. And maybe it's time to just take on that next adventure of whatever it may be, going from general to oral surgery or from dental assistant to being an office manager. That's one thing that I know John and I have talked, myself especially, that I'm very chatty, as we are experiencing, but in general, I can be a little bit more of a standoffish person that I might not want to put myself out there in an uncomfortable or odd kind of conversation or situation. This has definitely taught me to step out and ask, your doctor, or go into your office manager if you need a change, or you're willing to help out your office in a different manner. Just go for it.
That's wonderful advice, Amanda. Thank you so much. I think the Zen offices will have a lot to take away from what you just said. Stepping out of your comfort zone and just, being ready with whatever life brings you, especially during COVID right now. So, John, anything else you have for the Zen offices before we wrap it up for the day?
No, I think Amanda summed it up perfectly. If you're an assistant and, maybe deep down you're thinking, hey, there's more, I have a lot more to offer. Some offices just essentially hold assistants back. Like, they want to go to CE. They want to learn more. They ask questions. And unfortunately, they're just not paired up with someone that wants them to grow. And honestly, if someone's holding you back from growing, it's time to move on. It's just, it. Exactly. You know the answer. Yeah. Maybe you're just afraid to pull that trigger. Whether it's jumping full force like Amanda and I are, or if you're
so proud of you.
Or if you're just thinking, maybe along the other lines of, hey, I want to be a rep. I want to, like Amanda said, go from general to OS, whatever it is. Unfortunately, a lot of assistants we come across, they're scared. I see so many posts. It's like, well, I don't make the money I should make, but I like the office I'm at. Well, unfortunately, I always tell everyone when they go on an interview, whenever they're evaluating a job, they need to evaluate everything and come up with whatever they're comfortable with. And everybody values something different, whether it's the hours, whether it's the location, whether it's what the office does. So you really need to take all that into account and decide what's the next step. What do you want to do? Because, I was in a private practice. I thought I would be with this dentist the rest of my life. And then one day he just came in and, he was in his late 40s. He said, hey, I sold the practice to a group and, unfortunately I'm not taking my staff with me. So here I was thinking I was just going to coast. And this guy wasn't about education. Like, I was perfectly fine showing up every day. So it was definitely a good kick that I needed, because that's what led me into corporate dentistry and, learning that, hey, this is actually a business, something I was never taught before.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. Very true. And you never know where it takes you in dentistry. Like you mentioned, John, you start out in this private practice and then everything changes. They sell the practice and you're elsewhere. You never thought you were going to be there. So just dental assistants have to adapt to the new environment with COVID, with offices changing, with the schools opening up right now. And so many changes are coming. So we just got to be ready for it and accept it and move on. So that's wonderful. So,
absolutely.
John and Amanda, thank you so much for your time, for sharing all of these awesome things about the Cornerstone Dental Academy. I will ask for your company email. We'll link up the notes for our users, and we'll see you back in a couple months because I'm sure you'll have more to share. So that's going to be very exciting. So thank you once again for being here with us today.
Oh, well,
Sounds great. Thank you for having us.
We appreciate it.
Thank you. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.